because
Because it doesn't look good, it doesn't make you feel
well,
good.
it doesn't make me feel good at all. So I prefer to hold it in and can pretty much talk myself through it with,
Yeah.
you know,
An
getting over
auditory,
it.
an auditory though will hold it in forever
And hate it or
And-
forget about it.
and hate it. And
Yes.
that brings us
Cancer.
to ulcers. No, we'll talk about that in a few minutes too, what that stress does to you. Walking, we forgot to talk about walking. Visuals hate to walk. If your mailbox were out at the end of the corner down there, you'd probably drive to it. You might not, but you'd probably drive to it.
Well, let's put it this way. If you could have a wonderful shape forever, never have to worry about your figure, never walking was not good for your health, then I could care less too much if I ever walk.
That's right. That's right.
But since I know it's good for you, then
Well, that's more of an auditory response, because an auditory will walk if it's logical.
it's
or,
logical.
Or if it's a good idea, they'll walk.
And then I tend to find
But a visual won't. I walk to my mailbox. I ride my bicycle 10 miles a day, but I drive, excuse me, I don't walk. I drive to my mailbox, which is about 100 yards away.
Right.
Who's to know? I don't know why, but I do. Because when it comes time to go get the mail, I guess I'm in a hurry. I don't know.
That's probably true.
But I do. I drive to the mailbox, but I ride my bicycle 10 miles a day. Now,
Well,
I ride by my mailbox twice on that.
no, but you've set certain things out in a pattern to do it, and that's little
That's right.
slots and.
That's right. But visual doesn't like to walk though. It's a waste of time. I won't jog. I used to jog, and it was a waste of time.
But I do enjoy
So now I ride
walking
my bike.
if that's what I'm doing. In other words, okay, I've set this time aside for walking. I enjoy the mountains, the scenery, and I get into it.
Yeah. So what you're saying then is that you do some things in a little bit more auditory mode.
Probably.
Yeah. Okay. And the kinesthetics, however, love to walk. My wife's sister is what we call a grape nut, affectionately we call her that. A grape nut is a person who lives in the mountains or lives out by the ocean or lives somewhere, but they don't live in a house. They live in a tent most of the time. And they're nice people, and they wear combat boots or they wear hiking boots or something. Well, she does, and hope she never sees this tape. She never shaves her legs, and she hasn't she hasn't shaved her armpits in years.
I like hiking, like at the Hilton or something
Yeah,
like that.
right. Well, this is the kind of person she is. Well, she came to visit us one time, and she made fun of me because I drove to the mailbox. And then she went for a walk for about, I don't know, 10 miles or so. Just for a walk. And hey, I would never do that. A visual would never do that. Where a kinesthetic has to walk. They love it. They're the kind of people who will go to the mall and do the mall walking every night, not just for health, but because they like to walk. Okay. On to money. Money is different for all three. The visuals sometimes get themselves in trouble with money because what they do is they like to spend it and get as much as they can without spending their money. What they like to do is they like to buy things on time so that the money goes farther right now. So they can buy this car, this boat, these wave runners, these new skis, this new cabin, on and
That's
on.
the fellow you
On
sell the
time.
Mercedes to. You say,
That's right.
you deserve this. You look good in that
That's
Mercedes.
right.
That Mercedes looks good on you.
That's right. That's right. That's the visual.
That's
The
right.
auditory won't think that way at all. The auditory's money attitude of money is totally different. What the auditory thinks is that money is there to be used in a very logical manner. What they'll do is they'll say, okay, I have $100. What can I get for this $100? I could buy $100 worth of bubble gum, or I can buy $100 worth of whatever, or I can buy groceries. I'll buy groceries. No, I'll buy $50 worth of groceries and I'll put the other $50 in the bank. That's what I'll do. And that's the way the auditory thinks. That's why they're so good with numbers, or so good with money is because they're so good with numbers. They think of it as a logical tool. They don't think of it as let's go get something with it. This is something that we need to use and plan. Now, the kinesthetics will sometimes get themselves into trouble over money too, but it's just because what happens is they buy on impulse everything. Now, the visuals will sometimes think about what they buy, but the way they think about it is how good they look in it. or how good it looks on them, or whatever. The kinesthetic think about how it makes them feel. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's good looking or not. So they'll sometimes get themselves in trouble, but they're not as often as the visuals. The visuals will get themselves in more money troubles than either of the other two patterns.
I probably would say I'm mostly the middle one, but I do a little bit of the other two.
The auditory is the cheapskate of the bunch.
Well, I'm not cheap, I'm overly generous, that's my problem.
Well,
But,
then,
in other words, when I have plenty of money coming in, I'm very generous with my family and friends, and overly so. But when it comes to, hey, this isn't extra money we're playing with here, then I get real tight with a buck.
okay, when an auditory goes to buy something, we were in Tijuana, and my wife, when she shops, and we'll talk about this, like I said, in a minute, but when she shops, she turns auditory most of the time. And when she shops, she has to get the best deal.
So do I.
The very best deal. And we'll walk away from some shops in Tijuana, and they'll say, "The cheapest gate, come back." And
They
she
chase
won't.
me down the street.
And she won't.
Well-
She doesn't care because she knows that they can go lower. And whether they will or not is their own problem, it's not hers, and she's gonna go get it where they will go lower.
I'm like her in that case.
And they've called her a cheap escape lots of times.
That's okay with me.
And it's okay with her too,
Like,
because you know what?
all this furniture
She
that
is
I bought, like Jim, he said, I could never haggle over prices like that. I said, see, to me,
That's the auditory coming out of it.
yeah, I just can't help it. If I can get a desk for $50 and somebody else is willing to pay $100, that's their problem.
Yeah. Okay.
But then I might take that 50 I saved and spend it on somebody. See? So,
Yeah, because you're a nice person.
yes.
Because you look good doing it.
I hear what you see that you're saying.
The car that the visuals buy
On Mercedes.
are, no, not very often.
They're not.
They might be if they come by your kind, a sporty kind.
Oh.
They're gonna be a sporty car.
Oh, they're gonna buy like.
They're not gonna buy.
Porsche.
They're not gonna buy the big bulky cars like
Right.
most Mercedes are, or Cads, or
Right. They're gonna
or
have
Lincolns.
that Porsche, that Corvette.
That's
that-
right. The sporty kind.
Okay.
The ones that look fast or are fast.
Mhm.
And they always buy them in
Red.
almost 3 different colors.
Red.
Well, that red now, because red's come out in the last couple of years. But the first color is silver or white. And the reason they'll buy silver, like your car,
Like mine.
like your little sporty silver car, is because it stays clean longer. It looks clean longer. And you don't have to worry about it. And that's important to you because it looks better longer. Okay?
Not just because I like the color silver.
No.
Oh, okay.
You like the color silver because it stays cleaner longer.
It's possible. I like black too, but,
Okay, but
it gets dirty faster.
That's right. See, and you won't buy a black because
Not
you
unless
have
I
to
had,
wash it every
well,
day.
unless I had a guy hired just to keep the car clean.
That's right. A visual is like that. What they'll do is they'll say, I want this to look good as long as possible, and so they might buy one black car, but they'll never buy another black car. Because then they've learned their lesson and they say, I'm
But
not
I would buy a
washing this
white
anymore."
car.
But they would buy a white car because they stay clean longer.
Mhm.
The other color out of the 3 is the light blue,
Right.
because they all 3 stay clean longer.
Mhm.
Now, the 4th color that they buy is the red, like you said. And the only reason they would buy red is because it looks so darn good.
That's right.
And that's the same reason they would buy a black, because
Those
it
are the
looks so
4
darn good.
colors I would buy.
But they won't buy the black very often, they buy a red more often than the black.
I would buy silver, white,
Like,
blue, and red.
you wouldn't buy a dark blue though, would you? Possibly,
I don't
but
think
probably
so.
not.
I don't think so.
Okay. Now
Unless I got a very good deal on it.
right. No, that's the auditory coming. Now the auditory doesn't care what color it is. They don't care if it's white or black or green, or they don't care. All they care about is the bargain.
Oh, no, I can't.
All they care about is whether they got the best deal or not.
I might buy a
The
green
salesman,
one
car
and pay
salesmen
for
have a
it.
real problem with auditories because car salesmen always like to get you in the car and get you to drive the car around
Mhm.
so you love it. Well, that's not the approach for the auditory. That's the approach for the kinesthetic. A visual, when a visual buys a car, they can look at the car and say, yeah, I know how it handles, I'll buy it right now.
Right.
Okay, and they'll buy it. The auditory, excuse me, they don't have to look at it. All they have to know is that they're getting the best deal ever. they have to cheat the dealership almost
I like
to
to do
buy the car,
both.
okay? But the kinesthetic, they buy the car for a totally different reason altogether. They buy a car to be comfortable in. Remember the way they sit?
Mm-hmm.
Remember, they sit way back and real comfortable?
Right.
Well, they buy
wouldn't
big
like my
cars.
car.
That's right. They
It's
buy
hard to get in and out of.
That's right. They buy big cars that are easy to get in and
Like
out
a
of. They're
Cadillac.
comfortable. That's right. Lincolns, big Mercedes, not the little one like you've got. They'll buy big Fords, big Chevys. They'll buy pickup trucks.
Put
Kinesthetics
extra
is-
shocks on them.
That's right. And they'll jack them up way high and put some great big huge tires on them. And you know what? They never feel a bump in the road with those big tires. Big smooth ride as they cruise on down the highway in a big 4x4. In fact, you might have even seen the bumper sticker that says, "My wife, maybe, my dog, sometimes, my truck, never." That means this is the
Mhm.
order in which you can mess with my things.
Right,
Don't mess with my truck ever,
right.
because that's a real important thing to them. Their truck is important, or their Caddy or their Lincoln, because they want that comfortable ride. They want to be baby macho, something like that. That's the cars. So when somebody pulls up in the car,
Excuse me, Sharon.
You wanna turn that off? Yes,
I just,
we're videoing. That's okay, we'll rewind it.
okay, we're back on. Okay, what did we just talk about? We talked about money,
Wait, let me
car.
see if I remember.
Oh, I know what I was gonna say about the car. We were just
Yeah,
on the car.
cars.
Now, if you see somebody pull up in a car, you can almost always tell what pattern they're in a car. Because a car's real important to people,
Mhm.
especially in Southern California. And so if somebody pulls up in a car, pulls up right in front of your door, in front of your window here,
Mhm.
you've got a perfect view to be able to tell what pattern they're in before they even walk in the door. Almost every time.
All right, let me give
Car's
you.
more important than a lot of
Okay,
things.
but let me give you an example. I know people that I might consider, maybe visual. Oh, I think the answering machine will get that.
Okay,
But it depends on what they're doing. They might have, in addition to their Cadillac or their Mercedes, they'll have a van, a pickup truck.
yeah.
So it depends.
Well, okay, when it comes to cars, let me explain to you the way a lot of people work their cars. We have 5 cars in our family.
Right.
Okay, and in those 5 cars, there's only one that I really drive. Now today, I'm driving a van,
That's right.
but the van is my wife's. That's her car. When we bought it, she bought it.
Hmm?
She had to have that van, and I didn't want it.
Well, I'll take it. I like them.
Well, she loves it. She had to have her van.
Mhm.
That's a kinesthetic vehicle. I mean, it
It's-
doesn't look good at all. I mean,
yes, but it's very
it's
practical.
so comfortable.
But it's what it'll
I
carry.
mean, I
how
can
practical it
drive
is.
down the road in that thing. I could go to sleep in that chair. It's got captain seats. I mean, it's so relaxing. It's got a TV. It's got a stereo. It's got air conditioning. You know.
Why
Everything.
wouldn't you
Okay.
lump it over into the center one where it's logical?
Well, you can do that. You can do that.
You have 6 people or 8 people to take
You
someplace.
can do that, and that was the argument she used to get me
Right.
to buy it.
That's what I would have used because it's practical.
But because see, she does some church things where she has to take lots of girls with her,
Right.
and sometimes she'll have as many as 15 girls with her.
Mhm.
They can all fit in that
That's right.
7-passenger van, all 15 of them. Okay, that was the logic she used to
Right.
get me to buy it. But why did she buy it? She bought it emotionally. And
Mhm.
people buy emotionally. They buy on emotion and then they justify things logically. We'll
Mhm.
talk more about that again in sales. So
Do
we'll
you
talk more about
in
that.
other words, you think most all buying is emotional?
Not all, but I'll tell you which is not when we get to sales. Okay, in the sales
All right.
section. Okay. The next thing is the real estate. This is real important to you because you're in the business.
That's right.
People buy real estate depending on the different pattern they're in. A visual will almost always buy the same kind of house. If you're taking a visual buyer out to look at homes, look at the home they sold. If they sold a home. If they're just rented, then that's a whole different story. But if they were buying and they sold that home and they're buying a new home from you, look at their old home because they will almost always buy the same style.
If you
It might be bigger,
Mhm.
it'll probably be bigger, but it will almost always be the exact
Okay,
same
but
style.
I don't always have that opportunity
No,
to
you
see.
don't.
see
But
the
if you
home.
can, and if you can't, ask them about it, because that's what they're gonna buy. Because that's what they see in their mind, they see a picture of their house. A visual can tell you almost exactly what they're gonna buy before you take them out. They'll be the ones who walk in the office and say, I want a 2-story, and it's gotta be in this neighborhood, and it's gotta be this price, and it's gotta be this many garages, and it's gotta have a pool, and they'll list all of those things. And the reason they can do that is because they've got this picture in their mind. They're looking at the picture and they can see it. And they're telling you, they're describing this picture now to you. They're dumping, remember, the mind dump? They're having you put it on paper so you can go out and find what they're looking for. Okay. It will usually be either a ranch-style home with vaulted ceilings, so it looks big inside, or it'll be a 2-story. And the reason is because they want it to look big. They want it to look like they bought bigger, more house than their neighbor did. They don't want to look like they bought the littlest house in the neighborhood. They don't want to look bad. They want to look good, and so they buy the biggest thing they can. Okay? They'll probably buy the biggest in the neighborhood instead of the smallest in the neighborhood. They will probably buy one that is light exterior, like stucco, the beige or pink or something like that stucco on the exterior. Because the lighter colors make it look even bigger. The darker colors make it look smaller, so they won't buy the dark colors. Okay. On the inside, it'll probably have combination rooms, like combination kitchen, dining room, combination kitchen, family room, combination dining room, living room. Because those rooms then look even bigger and make it look like they've got a bigger house and they bought even more home. They like bigness and openness. They also like windows, lots of windows in a home, so that it's open and clean and crisp. The carpet needs to be a lighter color. They will never buy a house with dark brown carpet. These are the people that buy the pink carpets and the purple carpets and the light blue carpets and
White,
yeah,
that's good.
yeah, and the white carpets. They might even throw runners down if the neighbors are coming over. Yeah, because they want it to stay clean after the neighbor's kids are gone. Okay. Okay, that's the kind of house the visual will buy. The auditory doesn't care what kind of house he buys. The visual, excuse me, one more thing on the visual, they'll probably never buy a fixer-upper because he wants it done when he gets there. He wants it to look great when he gets there. The visual, excuse me, the auditory will probably be the one that buys the fixer-upper more often. Kinesthetic may, but the auditory might because they can get a better deal on it. And that, remember, is the one criteria that they're looking for. If it fits their family, fits their needs, and if they get the best bargain on it. In fact, you're going to have the hardest time dealing with the auditories. Every salesperson in any situation, in any product or service, has the hardest time with auditories. And the reason is because by the time you get them all down, you've got the buyer and the seller agreed on the pricing terms. They're going to beat you up to get your commission.
Right.
Or the dishwasher, right? Or that painting on the wall or the fireplace, or the basket, or who knows what. It means nothing to them. It doesn't mean a thing to them, except it means that they won, because they have to win. With them, there is no win-win situation. It is a win-lose situation every time. Total auditory.
Gosh, so far I fall into both of those categories.
If the other party loses, then we win. It doesn't matter how bad we lost. If the other party lost, worse, then we won. That's the auditory. If the house was worth $100,000 and we paid $99,900 and we got the garbage cans with it, then we probably won. If that won't happen though, because what will happen is if it's worth $100,000, they'll probably buy it for $95,000. Okay. That's the auditory. I can't tell you about what the house is going to look like because it could be a ranch, it could be a tri-level, it could be anything.
Right.
But look at what they lived in before if they sold it, if you can, because that'll give you a clue.
But not all visuals can afford to live in what they would like.
That's right, and so that's why they buy those combination rooms, to make those houses look even bigger. Look bigger than they really are. Okay. Kinesthetic now. The kinesthetic are kind of tough to deal with too. Visuals are the easiest because they'll tell you, they'll dump on your paper right there everything out of their mind that they want in the house, and until you find it, you're not going to sell it to them. So you know until you've met every criteria. But the kinesthetic doesn't know what they're looking for. They're down here going, I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what kind of house it's going to be. I don't know what style it'll be. But I'll know
when I see it. That's
And-
me too.
And you know why?
Because they feel it.
Because they feel it.
Right.
In fact, they feel a lot of things in a house that the other two patterns just don't hear. I mean, feel, hear, see, anything.
That's me too.
The kinesthetic will feel things that are totally different. A kinesthetic will buy a house, even today, with dark brown carpet. And you wouldn't do that.
If I got a good bargain, I would. I'd rip it up and put white back in.
Okay, but generally speaking, but you wouldn't live with it with brown carpet. You wouldn't fall in love with it with brown carpet.
No.
Okay, the kinesthetic might. The kinesthetic will, again, buy the same style they sold, but they will buy a house that looks like kind of rustic. They're the ones that will buy, the kinesthetics are gonna buy things like the ones with used brick on the outside,
Mm-hmm.
or the kind with brown trim or brown exterior, the kind that look like a barn. They love those kind. Makes them feel good. Visual hate them. They think they look ugly. The auditory only buy them if they get a good deal.
Right, and then turn around and sell 'em.
That's right. That's right. Okay, now the kinesthetic, remember, they have to feel it. Now there's another key to real estate with the kinesthetic. They'll feel things, like I said, that you won't feel, that nobody else will feel. Let me demonstrate this by telling you a story. I took a lady to a home, showed her a bunch of homes, sold her house. But in the process, I showed her one home that she said, I don't feel good about this house. And this was long before I knew about this.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, what don't you feel good about? She said, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. And as we walked down the hall to the bedrooms, she said, ooh, it's awful in here.
Somebody died in there.
Yeah, and she knew it, and
That's
I didn't.
right.
Nobody knew it. Until we
That's-
checked with the sellers who had already moved, and you know what they said?
Somebody died in there.
Their baby had died in that bedroom. And that lady knew it.
Yes, I believe in that.
The kinesthetics can feel it.
Right.
Now, remember I said we talked earlier, we would talk about other senses?
Right.
I'm not so sure that there are other senses, but the kinesthetics utilize their sense to the extreme, to the totality. If they're good kinesthetics, and they can feel those kinds of things. They can feel the things that are in a house. They won't buy a house that somebody's died in, or gotten a divorce in, or had a bad marriage in, whether they got a divorce or not, because it just doesn't feel right. Even if the decor is right, or the style is right, and it fits, everything fits. They won't, because they can feel it, and those bad vibes will just throw them right off. And you're gonna have to show them something else. In fact, you're better off taking them home, because they're not gonna look at anything else. Nothing else is gonna feel good that day. So take them home and show them another day, when they feel better. When those bad vibes are gone, because they feel them. And you may feel them, I don't know. I've seen a lot of buyers since I've learned this, that really do feel that. And it's real.
Oh.
And I don't feel it. I don't understand it. I mean, I understand it, only because I understand them,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't feel it. I mean, it's not part of me.
No, I am very much like that. I mean, one day I was at work and all of a sudden it was like a black, I'd never felt anything like it. It was like a cloud in the room with me. And it was this overwhelming dread and feeling. And I called my mother and I checked everyone in the family to make sure everyone was okay. And what had happened, my best friend had had a heart attack and died. And I did not know it. I mean, I could not pinpoint it.
You didn't know what it was.
I
but
did
you knew
not know what
something
it
about
was. My mother said that my sister-in-law was having an operation that day, so I thought, that must be it. But 4 or 5 days later, then I found out through family that on that very day, that very time, had had a heart attack and went to the hospital and died. So I didn't feel...
Now, other people besides kinesthetics can feel those things.
Right.
But kinesthetics feel them more often
Mhm.
and stronger.
You mean like Shirley MacLaine?
That-
I'm just
Let me
kidding.
tell you something about Shirley MacLaine, and this is for the record. As a hypnotist, I can tell you something about age regression,
Mhm.
that it does not work, that it's bunk, and that it's only in the mind of the person creating it. It is not age regression, it is the creative side of a person's subconscious that is creating what they think is in music. And then they pass it off on their conscious mind as reality. And hypnotists who practice age regression and past life regression are charlatans. And that's my opinion. And now I'm off my soapbox. Now back to
Okay.
this. Okay, that's real estate. Have any other questions about real estate while we're on it?
Well, no, I would say my biggest problem is when the people don't come right out and say, I need a house tomorrow, and they're out there with the furniture on the truck, then you know those are very motivated buyers. But it's the ones that fall in between, trying to drag it out of them, whether they're serious. Some of the people here that we weren't sure, I'm getting much better at it though.
Okay,
I just pass them off that, well, they're not really that interested, and they go and buy the next day.
okay, let me tell you what happens is, in this kind of economy that we're in now, where it's just a little bit sick and there are bargains to be had, the problem is that the visuals are still trying to sell at a profit, the one that they bought for just a little bit too much money because it looked great. And the kinesthetics are having a tough time selling because it felt great and they paid a little bit too much money, or maybe they paid market value and now it hasn't gone up and so they can't sell. Or they're holding on to it because they haven't sold it yet. And so they're motivated, but they're not ready. They're able and willing, but they're not ready. See what I mean? The auditories then become prevalent in this kind of economy because they're the only ones who are also ready, willing, and able. Because the reason they're ready is because they've got money stashed away in the bank to buy this new house, whether they sell the other one or not. Or they've got enough equity in it to where they could drag that money out in one form or another and put it down on this new home, if they made the right bargain. And so there are more auditories in this economy looking for a house than there are anything else. And so that's what you'll run into more often than anything is auditories. And what they're looking for is they're looking for the bargain. And when they find the best bargain, they're going to get it. And what you need to do as a salesperson then is create in them the need and the desire to buy this particular house because it is the only bargain that they'll see this week. And it's a better bargain than they'll see next week. Then you have to build that, and it's a fire you have to build. And you have to explain to them that these people, the sellers particularly, are motivated, and they have to get out and on and on and on for an auditory to get them to make an offer. And then they'll make that offer, and then you've got them because they're in the negotiating mode. But don't let them go. I walked away from the deal once with two auditories, a doctor and a lady who owned her own business, and they're both auditory. She had a resort condominium for sale, and he wanted to buy a resort condo. So it wasn't a motivation thing. She just wanted to sell, and he just wanted to buy. Neither one of them had to have a place to live, or it wasn't one of those situations. It was a resort. And when it came right down to it, we got the price and the terms and the possession date and everything. It was all worked out. Everything. All the hard things were done. All that was left was one little simple thing. He wanted to stay one night in the condo free before he would sign the last counteroffer. And he said, I will, as soon as I stayed there one night. Or I'll sign it right now, or she'll give me that one night free. And I went back to her. So we wrote a counteroffer to that effect. And I went back to the seller and I said, this guy's just taking you to the cleaners. He's just taking you for everything that you've got, and he just wants a bargain. And I don't think you ought to give him a bargain. She says, okay, we won't. And I lost the sale. If I'd said sign it, that's the only way he's going to buy it, she probably would have signed it.
Well, what was the difference if you had that one night though? I mean,
He was an auditory. It wasn't any meaningful thing to him.
I realize that, but it probably wasn't to her either.
No.
The only person that really lost is you.
That's right. You see, a salesman can do himself more harm by talking.
Right. But I mean, if he was really taking advantage, I would have said, something. But did you expect her to?
He was a friend of mine, and I
Oh.
thought he was out of line.
Oh,
See,
yeah, he might have been.
he was out of line. I still believe today he was out of line. But I was stupid, and that's worse. Okay.
than being out of line.
That's right. That's right, because being stupid is what cost me some money, cost me a couple $1,000s in commission. Oh, it was just a stupid thing for me to say. I should have just kept my mouth shut. A long time ago I learned, and that reinforced it, that my opinions don't mean a thing. It's between the buyer and the seller. I'm just the agent. And when I step across that line and start giving them my opinions, then I am,
Right, you could have said,
then I'm being
right,
stupid.
what do you think? Do you think
That's
that's too much to ask, or would you mind if they had that one night?
That's right.
Unless, of course, there was some really legal danger there, or some legal complication that could have caused
But it was a
that.
resort condo, so
Right,
it's no
it would have
big
been no problem.
It was just, yeah. Anyway,
And could your friend believe that she turned it down because of that one night?
you know, he was
Oh.
mad. He was really mad. I mean, it was such a simple thing. Anyway,
We all do things like that.
yes, well, I'm willing to admit it because I hope somebody else will learn from my stupidity. Okay, cars, houses, real estate. Okay, the decor. The decor of the visual is, like you said, white carpet, white furniture, clean, crisp kind of appearance anyway. The auditory doesn't care what their inside of their house looks like. It can look like this couch came from Aunt Sue, and this couch came from Uncle Joe, and this chair came from, they were all gifts, right? They were free, right? I mean, that's the best kind of bargain you can get. That's what the auditory is most concerned about.
Don't you think, though, that lots of people are visual when it comes to their homes, though?
Well, no. You haven't seen as many homes as I have, I guess.
No, I've seen a lot of what I call dumps. I guess I would have to say my family and friends then all fall into the visual.
They may.
It's absolutely spotless, spick and span, and
Auditories can do that,
mhm.
but that's not the way they really operate. If there's a husband-wife team, for instance, in a purchase, we're almost there. We're not there yet. We'll talk about purchasing
Okay.
and sales situation, but what happens is they really don't care what it looks like. The only reason they buy those things is because somebody else, like their wife or somebody, made it important to them. Okay, but the kinesthetic is important, like the visual, because the kinesthetic wants it to appear like a nest, make it feel real homey and comfortable. I know a lady who is totally kinesthetic, and her home is dark brown exterior. She's a real nice gal. Dark brown exterior. She drives a big dark brown Cadillac. She has a family room that is not quite dark brown carpet, but kind of brownish, with a big fireplace out of used brick and wood. And she's got these little plaques all over her walls that say things like, "Kiss the cook," "Home is what you make it," or "Home is where you hang your hat," or, you know, all of those little kinds of plaques, and big plaques, and those kinds of things, all plastered all over every wall throughout the whole house. And a visual would think, of course, this is all chalked up. But hey, this is her home, and this is her castle, and that's the way it is. Because I want it to feel good. And that's the way she feels about it. And she's kinesthetic. Okay, that's the way the kinesthetics decorate the inside. They like the earth tone.